If you want to add a little glitz and glam to your photo, it's time for a star filter. Today, I'm going to be comparing 5 different Tiffin star filters. Hey everybody, Lindsay Adler here, and in my work, all the time, more is more. I use bright colors and gels and hard light and gemstones and sparkles and creative filters. So today what I want to do is show you some comparisons of 5 different star filters. Now before I compare them, I did want to talk about how you get a starburst effect. Now first of all, you need something that is reflective in the scene. That could be a disco ball, it could be a gemstone, it could be a piece of glitter, something like that. That is essential in order to get a bright specular highlight. Or you can actually have a light source in the scene, so a light behind the subject or something reflecting. Now, once you have the reflective surface, you also need hard light. Hard light is essential if you want to bring out the most in a star filter. So you've got the hard light, you've got the sparkles, and now it's time to add your star filter, but which one? And a lot of people don't realize that there are so many different types of star filters to choose from. Now, I am going to compare 5 different star filters. All of these are going to be from Tiffin. Now, some of the star filters are a little bit more subtle. You'll see kind of a smaller but more intricate starburst effect. Others will pick up on any reflection and give you a really beautiful defined glow. There's not a right or wrong, it depends on the effect you're trying to achieve in your shots. Now before we look at these, I also want to point you to my monthly membership platform, Learn Plus. I have an episode dedicated to creative filters, not just star filters, but things like black pro mists and ghost filters and so much more. And so you can see how they can bring just a little bit of something extra to your shots. So I have that linked in the description below. Now, let's take a look at our scene. Behind me, you can see I have several things to create starburst effects. I've got disco balls and I've got these pretty iridescent streamers. And next up, I have 3 hard light sources. On the left-hand side, I have an optical spot. An optical spot has a lens in the front, which makes the light extremely hard and specular. And this is going to be what creates the large starburst effect, the large reflection on our disco ball. And then on the right-hand side of the scene, I have 2 bare bulbs. Again, hard light, one with blue, one with pink. Now, of course, I'm not trying to shoot a final image here, but I want you to see here that I'm giving many different light sources, and each one is going to give me different angles and reflections, which gives me more opportunities for the starburst effect. Okay, so before I add a filter, let's take a shot without any of the special effects. Now already I like the scene that we're working with, and I see a lot of reflections that will be perfect. So we're going to talk about 5 star filters. The 4-point star filter, the 6-point star filter, the Hollywood star, North Star, and Hyperstar. Each one is going to give us a different starburst effect. All right, so let's go in that order and take a look at the differences. All right, first we're going to start with a 4-point. With most photographers, I actually recommend they begin with the 4-point star filter. And the reason is that it's easiest to use. It's going to show the most starburst effect the most easily. With some of the other filters, you need a big rhinestone or a big reflective surface, hit with a hard light at exactly the right angle in order to see the starburst. But with the 4-point, notice it's picking up on the disco ball and the streamers in the background. So you're getting a lot of the effect, but it's not overpowering the image. So next up, let's take a look at the 6-point. It is a similar look to the 4-point, but you'll notice it's hazing out even more. And that's because with 6 points, it obviously has 6 points. So you're going to see more of the starburst around the image. It is stronger, it's more dramatic. No right or wrong, it just depends on if this is the look you're going for. You'll also notice the image decreases in contrast just a little bit because those bursts are all over the photograph. Yes, it picks up on the disco ball, and it also picks up on the streamers. So next up, let's take a look at the Hollywood star. With the Hollywood star, you'll notice that you have little clusters of the starburst effect, but it's definitely not as noticeable on the background. This is another one where the hard light with the exact right angle is pretty important to see the starburst effect, but it's a different star. It's an interesting star. All right, so speaking of interesting stars, let's take a look at probably one of my favorites, which is the North Star. I really like this particular filter because I love the shape of the starburst. It's intricate, it's a little bit more interesting, it's unexpected, and you'll also notice it doesn't overpower the scene. So it really does take a bright reflection in order to achieve this effect, but when you get it, it just sparkles. It almost doesn't even look real. All right, so now we're going to take a look at that last, the fifth star filter, which is called the Hyperstar. And as it sounds, it maybe is a little over the top in a good way. With this Hyperstar, you see so many different rays, and it is, once again, just a little bit more interesting, a little bit more detail compared to the 4 or the 6, but it takes a direct reflection to achieve that result. You'll notice you're not seeing much of it on the streamers in the background. So we've looked at 5 different star filters. The question is, which is the right one? And it totally depends. Do you want to see a lot of reflections? Would you rather see them in the foreground and background, or is it more important that you have more intricate rays? All depends on the look. So the key ingredients, something reflective, hard light sources, star filters. But now what I want to do is I want to show it in action with our model. So as expected, my creative team gave me a stunning look with so many different things to create beautiful starburst effects. So first of all, we have gemstones, rhinestones on the eyes. And then around her head and on the chest, we used sparkle rhinestones that are intended for trim on a dress. But we cut them up, glued them on, and now we have her just dripping in beautiful rhinestones. So thing number 1, I've got sparkly stuff. Next ingredient that I need is hard light, and guess what? We have set up 4 different hard lights. So our main light is over the left-hand side. We're using a Westcott optical spot with the 150mm lens. This is to create a slice of white light on the face. The optical spot creates extremely hard light, so this is going to be perfect to give us the biggest reflections. And then we have 2 rim lights, one on either side. One's purple, one's pink. We are using a zoom reflector with barn doors. Now, the reason we have barn doors on is that anytime you use a star filter, it often will create lens flare. And fundamentally, that's because it sees any light source in the scene and streaks out the light. So when I'm shooting into a light, it's more likely to grab the rim lights and kind of streak on the edges. Now, it's not wrong to have the lens flare. It could be used for creative effect, but it could also be a little bit distracting. So we have the barn doors to give us the flexibility to block some of the light from the camera's lens. And then last but not least, we have our 4th hard light in the front here, a bare bulb with a blue gel, which is going to fill in the shadows and then pick up any more reflections that are not being hit by the main light. So I have got hard light from every angle. Now, before we shoot, I want to talk a little bit about my camera gear. I'm using the Canon R5 Mark II and the Canon RF 24-105 lens. Now, for purchasing filters, you want to make sure you get the right thread size. So you want to get the right filter size, and it depends on the lenses that you're using. For these, I'm using an 82mm filter. You could also get the largest filter that fits the lens with the largest thread size that you have, and then you can get rings to step them up or down to different lenses. So in other words, you don't have to buy a different filter for every lens that you have. Now, before I actually shoot my subject for real, I want to compare just a couple of different filters to show you the different effect, not only in the shape of the starbursts, but also how much they pick up the reflections in the light. So we're going to begin with the 4-point star filter. Okay. This is what the shot looks like straight out of camera. So there's so many things that I want you to notice. First of all, so many photographers are afraid of hard light because hard light shows rough texture on the skin. However, it can create beautiful results, and look at all of the reflections on the rhinestones. All right, so 4-point star filter looks great. So let me show you what it looks like when we switch over to the North Star. So what I want you to notice now is there are not as many reflections on the rhinestones around her face and head. However, when it does get just the right angle, it's a larger starburst and it's even more intricate. So there's no right or wrong answer. It's a little harder to get just the right reflection, but when you get it, it's beautiful. There are just 2 more points I want to make. First of all, the filters, you can actually rotate them. So if you don't like the directionality of the star or starburst, you can simply rotate it around. And then last but not least, your posing, your angle of your subject will make a huge difference. Every tiny movement is going to change the angle of reflection of one of those lights. And so even just a fraction of an inch to the left or right could totally change the amount of starburst you see. So you want to shoot and shoot a lot, because each time you do that, it's going to give you a totally different result. All right, so I'm going to work with my subject, and I've also given myself a black piece of plexi in the foreground so I can play around with another reflection in the scene. Now, I'm going to try all of these different filters and see which one is working best for this shot. All right, let's get it. All right, so there you have it, 5 different Tiffin star filters compared, and each one giving me just a little bit of a different effect. So which one is right for you? I don't know, it depends on which one is fitting your concept. And I do think if you're new to this, maybe start with a 4-point and then build up. I'd say my favorites are the 4-point and the North Star. All right, guys, so if you want to see the gear that I use to create these images as well as these star filters, be sure to check out the links in the description below. And of course, if you're going to pick up some of this gear, be sure to visit Adorama.com. All right, everybody, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.